So there's a vast amount of improvisational music out there, and there are a lot of artists who, they label what they're playing as jazz or classical or rock or pop or whatever it is. And do you think there's an extent to which you can play something outside of what is considered jazz and be able to still call it jazz, or is there a level to
Whatever
I know a lot of people criticize, artists like Kenny G is calling himself a jazz musician because they believe that what he plays should not be labeled as jazz. Do you think there's a form of music that one can play and it's not correct to call it jazz?
It is a good question. Now let's deal with the question in terms of actuality. Actually, it is called jazz. I don't like it, it doesn't matter. It is called jazz. That is a fact. There are jazz festivals all over the world, and Kenny G is a jazz musician in relation to what is considered to be jazz now. He plays jazz, he improvises, he knows tunes, he plays on changes. So it is called jazz. Now, what is the other part is, what do I think about it? I think that it is inaccurate. But I think that with inaccurate things, some inaccuracies are so built into cultures, they're hard to reverse. Something can be something, but it's nothing. It's like that Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. So if you look at that, that's a prime example of it. I always call it like the American moment. Everything was there but the fight. It's not like he didn't train. They trained, they were in shape, they were ready, the hype, everybody was there, everything went on. But the only thing that didn't go on was a fight. So did he win? Yeah, he won. And I think about a lot of music. Is it jazz? Yeah, it's jazz. But in terms of what I think about the music, and maybe somebody else who has a different opinion should speak, when the bass and the drums play, what they play most of the time determines what it is they're playing, what the style of music is. Now, I'll use an example not in jazz that Carlos and I have talked about a lot, which is the generic Latin. Piece of music says Latin, somebody just starts playing doom, 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 to this terrible. No relationship to Latin music. But you can go anywhere in our country and say Latin, and people are going to play that. If a person who actually knows about the music says, that's not really Latin, those who are playing around will get mad. What you mean is not Latin? This is Latin. Then it becomes a semantical argument. And when you start to semantics, you start to work with words. Man, words are very funny. Let's go back to the fight. Was it a fight? Yes. Did Mayweather win? Yes. Did he outpoint Pacquiao? Yes, he did. Did people pay for it on pay-per-view? Yes, they paid for it. Was he in shape? Yes. Because is he a great boxer, have a tradition boxer? Yes, he is. Was it a fight? No. Could you go back and forth? Yeah, you could go on forever. So if the bass and drums are swinging, that's the rhythm of jazz. If they're playing a backbeat, that's... Now, why is it important to label something? It's important to label it because if you don't have a label for it, you can't communicate what it is. How can everything in the world have a word that describes it that means something but jazz? How is that possible? I want some tea. I'm not going to bring you coffee. Oh, I don't want to deal with labels. Just give me a liquid. Okay, I'll bring you a liquid. Is this lemonade? So it's a thing that I've always been curious about, how when it gets to jazz, it's always like a cloudiness of, well, it could be anything. Okay, well, how am I going to teach somebody something that could be anything? How is that possible for me to communicate to you what I'm talking about when the name actually doesn't mean anything, or it means everything? So it is considered to be everything. That's a fact. What will make it easier to teach is if it was actually descriptive of something that when you said it, people knew what it was. Anybody think something different? Tell me. Walter's writing jokes down, right? Does that make sense? That's the closest I can get to it. Yes, sir.